Hello and welcome back to Norty's Forgotten Flicks. Hey, what if I told you that there's a semi-remake of an Alfred Hitchcock movie out there starring the kid from Transformers, directed by a guy who had pretty much only done TV shows before? And what if I told you that movie was actually really good? This is Disturbia. Disturbia was released in 2007 under the direction of television director D.J. Caruso. And yes, it is pretty much a semi-remake of Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window, which I actually watched for the purpose of this review. It was really good, and before you ask, yes, it is technically better than Disturbia. However, only by a little bit if that's saying anything, which when you're talking about Hitchcock, it certainly does. And by all means, this film was a huge success. It made over $114 million on a $20 million budget, and even the critics liked it, giving it a 68% on Rotten Tomatoes. Which is surprising for a movie directed by a guy who had really only done TV shows before, and the writers hadn't done much before either. But since then, Christopher Landon has gone on to write all the Paranormal Activity sequels, and Carl Ellsworth went on to write the Last House on the Left remake and the Red Dawn remake. Seems remakes are his specialty, but let's get into the story. It stars Shia LaBeouf, yes, LaBeouf, as high school student Cale. At the beginning of the movie, he is fishing with his father, but on their way home they get into a car accident which ends up killing his dad. A year later, Cale punches a teacher and is put under house arrest. Bored out of his mind, he decides to start spying on the neighbors, which includes some pretty shithole-like boys, the hot girl next door, and a crazed madman who kidnaps and kills women. Now, unable to leave his house, Cale enlists the help of the girl next door, Ashley, of course her name is Ashley, and his best friend Ronnie, and the three try to prove he is a killer. So why is the movie so good? Well, it does what all remakes should do, respect the source material while also updating it for a modern audience. When Rear Window came out in the 50s, there wasn't much to do if you weren't allowed to leave your house. Today, that isn't so much a problem. We have internet, video games that allow you to play with people who aren't in your own house, big screen televisions, DVDs, Netflix. Seriously, if I wasn't allowed to leave my house, I would actually be happier. But Cale's mother takes all that away from him, thus making him feel even more bored than he would have if those things didn't exist at all. And the movie is legitimately scary. It does a great job building suspense before giving a fantastic jump scare. Holy shit! Cale is probably the best performance I've seen from LaBeouf, and I actually liked him in Transformers. But here he's incredibly sympathetic, despite being kind of a douchebag. I mean, he spies on his neighbor, ruins her party, and as I mentioned, punches teacher in the face. Although to be fair, most of us have wanted to do this to our teachers. It all just works. His best friend Ronnie is hilarious. He's played by Aaron Yu, and I just find him to be incredibly funny. And I swear this guy was the inspiration for Sam's roommate in Transformers 2. Sarah Romer is Ashley. Oh yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Then there's Cale's mom, played by Carrie Ann Moss. Okay, seriously, why isn't this chick in more stuff? She's hot, and she can act. And the last big movie she was in was Silent Hill Revelation, and how many people actually saw that? But the best performance is David Morse as the supposed killer Robert Turner. Holy shit, this guy is terrifying. He was so committed to the role that he never talked to the three main actors until after the movie was over to make them more fearful of him. In fact, let's just go into my favorite scene right now. It would have to be when he's talking to Ashley. You see, Cale and Ronnie are trying to find a way to break into Turner's house, so Ashley follows him to the store where he finds her and has a talk with her.
I know that you've been following me. No, don't tonight. I'm not upset. And quite frankly, I don't even want to know why. Some kind of hip, new-aged way of coming on to a somewhat older man. I really feel obliged to tell you that I rather enjoy my privacy.
Just the idea that he could snap and kill her at any minute has me at the edge of my seat. And for half the movie, we aren't sure if Turner really is a killer, so it's a bit of a mystery as well. Now, of course, I did say that this wasn't quite as good as Rear Window, so there are a few problems. One, there's this subplot involving a character who is the cousin of the teacher Kale punched, and he isn't so much a character so much as a plot device. His story doesn't really go anywhere. Plus another subplot involving some neighborhood boys that is just annoying. It takes a while to get going, the villain doesn't even really show up until about a half hour in, but probably the biggest problem is that near the end it gets way too shaky and way too dark. I think I can see a finger. But other than that, Disturbia is a very solid thriller and one of the best PG-13 horror films I've ever seen. It's suspenseful, funny, has some great characters, great acting, is directed well, for the most part, and it does a great job of making you feel like you're trapped in a house like Kale. So if you haven't seen it yet, check it out. It's a perfect date movie for Halloween. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye. I'm gonna go make a Twinkie Mountain.